Chapter 17. Desk Operation. A splitting headache made Rodan's right temple throb. The pain seemed to radiate in time with his pulse, carrying spells of dizziness and fatigue with each beat. The sensation shook the once indomitable 6'3" college lineman from within. He didn't mind the pain. It forced fits of involuntary rest from the endless ringing of his desk phone, an old smartphone that ceased to vibrate across the document readers and papers strewn on his desk, and his TP comm that kept toning in his head. He wanted to disconnect from it all, walk away, but he couldn't. He could barely leave his desk to relieve himself before someone tried to reach him. What if I miss something important? Then I'll feel real shitty. The specter of failure loomed over his shoulder in every moment, threatening to crush him with guilt or a heart attack. Sometimes he wished for the heart attack. At least he would be able to lie down and close his eyes. It was at times like these he contemplated the durability of his service-focused personality. He thought of it as a freshly smelted solid bronze medieval shield that he had used strong and nimble hands to hold in the air in order to protect himself and others over the years. Its surface was flawless and resplendent, able to dampen and shield from the heaviest of blows. But after years of buffering attacks, large and small, protecting himself and the weak from all that is wicked and unjust in the world, his defensive power had lost its luster. Brittle and dull, it no longer reflected the faces of the world's villains. It no longer reflected anything on its blemished surface. It became an ineffective tool. As it lay flat, discarded in the mud, it concealed all manner of worms and vermin squirming beneath its once brilliant, hard surface. With Rodan constantly trying to pry it from the sticky mud and raise it with aged and swollen hands, only to drop it again seconds later. With every fall, it became heavier, harder to raise, less effective, and prone to fracturing down the middle as it neared its maximum load. If it breaks, I wonder if I'll be able to put it back together again, or if I'll have to get somebody else to do it for me. He managed to push aside the macabre thoughts to allow himself a moment to lean back in his leather-backed office chair for a full minute and close his eyes. Mindfully, he focused on deep breathing, replacing the old stale air in his lungs with frigid filtered air from the office. In and out. Inhale, exhale. Count backwards from 50. 50, 49, 48, 47, 40. The ring from his secure phone line sounded abrasively. Its obtuse sine wave bounced unevenly around in his skull, evaporating his relaxation exercise. It caused his head to vibrate like a bell, adding pressure to a mind on the brink of combustion. This had better be good news. Rodan could hear noises of tactical preparation on the other end. Buckles jangling, firearms clicking, the creaking of vehicle suspension as it moved at a moderate speed resounded in the background. When the voice on the other end spoke, it sounded occupied, but confident, with a strong Mexican-American accent.
Rodan, we're 10 minutes out from the site.
Copy that. Let me know when you arrive, Rodan said, rubbing his temples with his free hand.
Claro.
It was Raul. From his slightly spaced words and the pronunciation of his vowels, Rodan knew English was not his first language. But it didn't matter. Raul had been a faithful leader of the small quick reaction unit known as the Lobos for years. In the last 5 years of their working relationship, Rodan had pieced together his personality through a combination of one-line response voice messages, field reports, and occasional live operations. They had never met in person, but from what he could tell, Raoul preferred to showcase his proficiency through action rather than words. Though he couldn't help but be suspicious of his taciturn responses, he always knew he could rely on him to get the job done. Raoul's crew consisted of about 50 members. The unit counted on former ex-convicts, drug dealers, failed entrepreneurs, and hobbyists to fill its ranks. Rodan had conducted many of the background checks himself, and knew, despite where many of them had been, one common trait bonded them all together: boredom. It was the same for most other mercenary groups around the country. Few fought for country, glory, or even money anymore. They simply needed something to occupy their hours of perceived infinite existence. It was no wonder Limnic's numbers had grown tremendously over the past few years. People needed and wanted something to do. Being an anti-Cereus Limnic supporter was an easy way to pass the time, get paid, and get a good workout in. 15 minutes later, there was still no response from Raoul. Rodan shook his head, with the receiver at his ear. He began to shift in his chair, venting impatience. Where the hell is he? Without warning, the phone came alive again.
Rodan, we've traced Mr. Ma's emergency beacon to an administrative facility in Midtown. From the latest thermal scan of the building, we estimate 15 hostiles inside. How do you want us to proceed?
Rodan breathed a heavy sigh and massaged his throbbing right temple forcefully. Do it. Use non-lethal force if possible.
Got it. Use the nanodrone for real-time surveillance.
Sure. Buena suerte.
Gracias.
The line went dead. Rodan hung up the phone, then scrambled to dig out a small glass-like panel from under layers of old documents. Where the hell is that thing? Even the sound of rustling papers exacerbated his headache. With some effort, he managed to locate the nearly invisible object and a small base attachment that allowed him to view it hands-free. He swept aside clutter to make an island of clear desk space, then set up the stand and the clear panel on it. With lightning muscle memory, he fingered in his password and logged into the surveillance unit's video application. When the feed came to life, the nanodrone's wide aperture captured faint light sources dangling from unseen wires in the shadowy space. Little else. The sound of boots scraping the floor, heavy breathing, and field gear shifting from sharp tactical movements filtered through the cheap wired speakers on Rodan's desk. He held his breath in anticipation of what the team of mercenaries would uncover, hoping to see Lee's face appear at any second. Where are you, buddy? His muscles tensed at every sound from the feed. A grunt from one of the men on the ground, the faint shadow of a silent hand gesture, a crack of a pipe. The smallest noise made him want to jump in his chair, as if he were watching a horror movie alone at midnight. He truly felt as if he were there. The cadence of the sudden shifts and jerks of the nanodrone's eye evoked nostalgic images from his time in the Sacramento Police Department. Tactical night operations, drug raids on illegal grow operations, the smell of his discharged weapon. He had to shut his eyes for a second to drive out pictures from his glory days. Gotta focus on the op. The team looked as if they had reached the far end of the building. The ribs of a metallic sheet wall were slightly illuminated, and he could make out what looked like a ramshackle prison on the left side of the screen. Had they kept him there? Had he escaped? Was he even still alive? He wanted to hold on to the ray of hope, and dismissed the thought that Lee might be dead, killed at the hands of his own source. If anyone could kill him, the Terminator had the training and means to do the job. I knew it. I warned him they were too damn close. Fucking Lee never listened to me. He was too trusting. Rodan silenced his inner tirade as if his TP comm were live, broadcasting his mental tantrum to the world. Limnic, those bastards, Rodan thought with bitterness. They had distorted Cereus' philosophy of bringing balance back to people and planet into a sadistic vision of capitalism cleansing at any cost, by any means. They were terrorists and represented a dire threat to both Cereus society and the old world. From his perspective, they had clearly caused the Terminator to compromise his self-proclaimed integrity and moral judgment to satisfy their stated objective. Had they gotten to Lee now, too? Clear. Raoul's accented voice sounded on the video feed. With no danger present, the nanodrone automatically activated a ring of powerful LED lights next to its camera, bringing the components of a small contingency-like encampment into view. There's no way here. Must have left out of the service entrance. The nanodrone shifted its light to a cream-colored rolling service door. We detect heat from the components of the door, so it was recently used. Damn it. Where is he? Rodan worked to relax himself before speaking. I see. Conduct a full search of the place and let me know what you find. Claro. Oh, and tell your guys they can keep any weapons, gear, or toys they find if there's no connection to Lee. Raoul's eyes grew wide, and a matching smile grew across his face under a bushy mustache. Entendido, muy amable. He relayed the message to his soldiers. Rodan could hear their elated cheers echo off of the walls. Anything else? For now, no. I'll let you know if something comes up. Sounds good. The video feed returned to a lifeless black screen. Rodan closed the application with a terse verbal command. He stood up slowly and stretched himself with his arms extended over his head, letting out an audible groan in the process. The weight of the events of the day and the disappointment from the search had thrown a blanket of fatigue over him. It made him want to close his eyes and take a nap. Gradually, he felt his body relax using its natural capabilities. Maybe I should have gotten that parasympathetic nervous system augmentation, or that people can relax real easy with that. These musings always came to him at moments like this. Times when he realized the limitations and weaknesses in the flawed design of human flesh. Its many shortcomings unsuited for the demands of the technologically complex 21st century. Yet he had no augmentations. On some primal level, he had the need to fight for control, like all humans, even if it was only with his own deficient biology. He stood there a few moments and permitted himself a moment to rest and think. I can't believe it. I'm it. The message he had received a few hours prior replayed itself in his mind. Rodan Mitchell, you are now the acting head of Cereus. Please contact the management committees of all Convilles and inform them of the change, and formulate your strategy to move the organization forward. The signature block that followed and authenticated the message was from Cooney himself. It was real. The system had told him so. Why'd he disappear? Where the hell did he go? He had no answers. In any attempt he made to contact the former director down in San Francisco had failed. Wherever he had gone, it was clear that he did not want to be found. Rodan would have to act without his vision and leadership. The shortest messages always have the most impact. A wave of self-pity trapped his thinking in a mudslide of fears and anxiety about his own ability to lead Cereus. He had always considered himself to be a good manager of people and programs, but not the man in charge. To him, leadership implied someone with solid personal principles, grounded in practical knowledge, and some kind of otherworldly divine sight that allowed them to counter anticipated and unanticipated events before they even occurred. His gaze wandered over his disaster of an office. There were papers covering the desk, and some now on the floor in his haste to locate the screen, an overflowing trash can that needed a trip to the point incinerator, his calendar a mess of events, half of which he knew he couldn't keep, and the dumpster fire that was his personal life. How can I lead if I can't get my own shit together? A ring from his standard desk phone ended the pity party. Without moving a step, he reached for the receiver. Hello? The voice on the other end oozed femininity and power with a slightly mannish octave. It captivated him and made him want to hear it more.
Mr. Mitchell? My name is Noelani Acosta. I got your number from my mom. I need to speak with you. I think we might be in trouble.
Rodan's eyes went wide upon hearing the name Noelani. This was Lily's daughter, the Lily he had given his card to all those years ago. The famous Liliuokalani Acosta, one of the founders of Cereus.